Okay. Next, you're trying to do crying in arms, but your baby or toddler won't cry. This also includes sucking their thumb. Okay, if this is happening for you, you're not doing it wrong. This sometimes happens. But even the not cry releasing when you are trying to allow it gives us some information. Even that is communication and showing us something. Why this happens, sometimes it's already a learned habit. These habits around emotions can set in really early. So sometimes they've already learned not to cry. It just takes some invitation. Stick with it, hold space, make the invitation. It's okay to cry. I hear you, and give it some time. Sometimes it's deeper layers. So yeah, maybe they got the surface cry out, or maybe not even, but there's something deeper. Sometimes the deeper stuff takes a little more invitation to come out or more time. Or in some cases, it's not the feelings they need to get out, but some information they need, like around birth story, early experiences, womb history. Sometimes they already went through the feelings and there's something they don't understand, or there's a piece that they just can't process, and having the information can really help. For some, another option here, possibility for why this happens, for some reason they may not feel safe to express their feelings. So it might be if you have some tension in your home, or you're living with other people and they're not comfortable with the crying, or you're not quite sure how to manage, they need to cry, but you're in someone else's space, that kind of thing. They may be feeling that. Or there can be something else going on entirely and not actually related to stress and feelings. And um, that's something I can help you look at too. But it can be other things like food, environment, body tension. Okay, with this scenario, some some will just open up eventually. It just takes invitation. Um, and then some we need to keep investigating and kind of check in and see what's going on. But what to do? Here's some things to do. First, look for chatting or babbling. And if you see that, allow that to build, see where it goes. So sometimes, of course, if you see your child chatting with you, like happily chatting or babbling, it doesn't look necessarily like big feelings are going to come right after that. But sometimes that's how they start the process. So look for that. And if you see it, like for instance, if you see that and you kind of go through, oh yeah, this is lovely, the chatting, and then you're like, I guess they're not going to cry, and then you do whatever and they go off to sleep. There might actually be something in there if you just be present, just literally wait. Let the chatting happen, let them truly guide the process. Do they chat with you and then they drift off to sleep on their own? Or do they chat and then it starts building up into a fuss or a cry? That might be your doorway into actually getting the cry. Also, look for routine. So I talk more about routine in the frequently asked questions section, but sometimes feelings can get submerged behind the routine. So sometimes if you see, oh, they seem a little fussy or tense or something, let's do the routine, let's get everything all set up, and then we'll sit down and do the cry, and then you can fall asleep. Sometimes the feelings submerge there and they won't come up again as a cry before sleep. So look for that. Also, if the cry really is not coming, just keep holding space, keep letting them know, I know this is different. It's okay to cry if you need to. You can cry if you need to. I'm listening. I want to hear you. And then also look for if crying happens for other reasons, like they bump themselves, they fall, there's some pretext, and there's some crying that happens then. Try and eke out as much cry release as you can from that situation. Don't feel like you need to fix it, unless, of course, if they're injured, always, if there's a medical concern, do that. But don't feel like you need to fix the whatever was the pretext, and really just allow that to go on as long as possible. If you feel like, or if they fall over or bump and you feel good that they're not injured, sometimes when parents kind of rush in to pick up and, oh, are you okay? Sometimes that will stop the cry. This is not at all meant to be mean or to not check in. Absolutely check in and go with your gut feeling. But sometimes if they fall or bump and you just kind of stay present, stay near, kind of check in, you can either wait and see what they do, or you can kind of, hey, I saw that. Are you okay? How are you? And sometimes in that space, they'll start the cry release, and then they'll come to you, or you can make your way toward them. But sometimes giving space to let them orient to what's happening, and then the two of you can make the connection, sometimes will take you there. Okay. Also, before I talk about sucking the thumb, holding and containering. Holding is usually talked about in relation to a toddler who's hitting or being aggressive, holding them because of the aggression. We talk about it, I reframe it as containering, but we talk about it in relation sometimes to sleep, where if you feel like your toddler or your baby, your child is active or busy or hyper or tense, but they're just not getting the cry out, and you scoop them up and you hold, and they'll cry and wiggle and try to get away. Making a container to help get physical can help the emotional process too. So it's not a force holding, but letting them move against you. If you're not sure or they're really wanting to get away, can let them get away. Give them a moment, see what happens. Are they playing and they're chill? Probably wanted to get away. Are they going back to being tense or busy? Or you feel like they're distracting from the cry? Give them a minute and then scoop them up again. Let them move in your container. Um, that's something I can also help you with if it feels like you're on the edge of forcing and you're not sure. But that is something that can help for the cry release, especially with a toddler who is distracting and just not getting the cry out. But you can also see that there's some tension and there's some feelings. They're just not letting it out. Okay, sucking their thumb. This is something we really want to be respectful about. I mean, always being respectful, but this is part of their body. So sometimes you can catch it before the thumb goes in and prevent it from going in and say, I know, I want to hear you. I'm listening. I know you usually get your thumb. I want to listen. You can cry if you need to. It's safe to cry. But also take care with this. I would not recommend doing this all the time, because you also don't want to build resentment for them that you're stopping them from getting their own body part, from controlling their own body. So, but at the same time, so you don't want to build resentment, but at the same time, I feel like there is there's a time to go in and just be really face to face and like, look, I know that you're having some feelings come up right now. You usually get your thumb, but really I really want to hear you. What's going on? How are you? Like to just to be very authentic in the moment. So both of those. And if your baby or toddler keeps sucking their thumb, keep holding space and making the invitation. You don't have to be pushy with the invitation, but it's still very different. Holding space for a child who's sucking their thumb with an open invitation is still very different from a child sucking their thumb when the emotional environment is not safe, or just even when parents didn't know the information and maybe they were using their thumb to stop the feelings, or there was a pacifier or comfort nursing and now it's the thumb. Now sometimes they're already sucking their thumb and they're in the womb. What I'm talking about is when it's emotion related and they won't let the cry out. So even holding space when they're choosing to suck their thumb is still important and will still make an impact, and you can keep communication open from there. Okay. Your child does not want to be held for crying in arms or to go to sleep. This one really depends on the history so far, the age of your child, if you've been doing crying in arms already or not, and exactly what's happening. But here are some options. Mobile babies who are mobile, who are moving around, and toddlers don't always want to be held for crying in arms, but they will still cry release. I mean, some of this, in the category of when they don't want to be held, some of them will still cry release, will still make eye contact, and will get the cry out, and then eventually will come and snuggle with you. If they're mobile, but it's more like they're distracting from the feelings or the cry, you might have some back and forth process. So again, that holding or containering piece where, or I talked about this in the previous question there, not a force holding, but to help get the feelings out, scooping them up, making a container for them. It might feel like they're trying to get away, scooping them up again. This is one possibility here. This also is sensitive. You don't want to build resentment around this process. If there's something deeper going on around not wanting to be held, so it depends. If you feel like the not wanting to be held is how do I say this, is more charged, like they really don't want to be held, versus they seem like they don't want to be held and they'll cry if you hold them, they'll get away, but eventually they snuggle into your arms and either keep crying or go to sleep. So there's some layers to this one, but I hope some of these ideas will give you a starting point. And then of course, sometimes legit, they don't want to be held. Sometimes they're not truly sleepy. So how to tell about, are they truly sleepy or not? If you wait longer to start the pre-sleep process, the bedtime or nap time, does it become shorter and easier if you wait longer? If yes, then likely they weren't sleepy enough. If no, and it still takes an hour or an hour and a half or whatever from when you start, regardless of when you start, then it's either not this, it's not that they're not truly sleepy, or it's a combination of things. Another thing, again, is all of these can trigger pre-sleep process, birth or early experiences. Those memories can get triggered, something not fully processed that keeps them in a holding pattern in a way. So Overall, if you find that they're not wanting to cry release and they're not wanting to be held and the sleep challenges linger, then there's likely a chunk of feelings deeper down that you can try some of these things to get to or reach out. Keto.